In 1964, a young woman was murdered on a New York street. The New York Times reported that 38 witnesses watched from their windows, and not a single person called the police. This single shocking event gave birth to the infamous Kitty Genovese bystander effect. The rule seemed simple. The more people who witness an emergency, the less likely anyone is to help. Except, the newspaper story wasn't true. Psychology textbooks missed half the picture, and security camera footage from 219 real violent incidents across 3 countries proves the exact opposite. For half a century, bystander effect psychology relied on a simple assumption: crowds breed indifference. But real-world data shows that this famous rule only captures a fraction of how human groups actually behave. The proof came from a 1968 experiment. Psychologists John Darley and Bib Latané put students in isolated rooms and staged an emergency over an intercom. A student in the next room was having a seizure. When students thought they were alone, 85% rushed to help. But when they believed they were part of a 6-person group, that number plummeted to 31%. The researchers blamed this on a few things. Mainly, a diffusion of responsibility, the assumption that someone else will surely open the door. They proved it again by filling a room with smoke. If a person was alone, they got up immediately. If they were sitting with actors who ignored the smoke, the subject stayed put, quietly choking on fumes. These lab results became one of the foundations of social psychology. Fast forward to 2020. A team, led by psychologist Richard Philpo, decided to look at the real world. They analyzed security camera footage from 219 violent street fights in Lancaster, Amsterdam, and Cape Town. The data completely contradicted the labs. In over 90% of these real-world conflicts, at least one bystander intervened. Often, it was several. And here is the real twist. As the crowd grew larger, the chances that someone would help actually went up, not down. Think of it as a numbers game. Even if being in a crowd makes you more hesitant, the sheer volume of people fixes the problem. If you are alone, your hesitation kills the response. But in a crowd of 20 people, even if everyone has only a 20% chance of acting, the odds that at least one person breaks the paralysis jump to nearly 99%. The footage showed crowds don't just stand there, they organize. Within seconds, strangers naturally divide roles. One person pulls the attacker away, another steps between the rivals, and a third helps the victim up. Why did the old lab experiments get it so wrong? Because a sterile room isn't a city street. Smoke creeping under a door is confusing. Is it a fire or just steam? A medical crisis behind a wall leaves room for doubt. When we're unsure, we look to others, see them doing nothing, and copy their hesitation. But on a real street, when someone gets punched in the face, the ambiguity vanishes. You hear the scream, you see the blood. The emergency is unmistakable. For half a century, psychology textbooks printed a neat, depressing graph showing that humanity loses its empathy in a crowd. But real-world cameras proved something far more reassuring. We might hesitate as individuals, but we protect each other as a collective. When something unexpected happens in a crowd, don't assume people will just stand by. The bystander effect is real, but it doesn't tell the whole story. As groups get larger, each individual may be less likely to help, yet the odds that someone steps in actually increase. Reality turned out to be more complicated than one of psychology's most famous stories.